If you love me, you'll drop it. My wife said that when I found her hospital bill. But she was pregnant by another man, and I proved it with a fertility test that ended our marriage forever. The morning started like any other. The coffee brewing, sunlight filtering through the kitchen blinds, and the low hum of Marissa scrolling on her phone by the sink. Then, I asked a question, and it was like striking a match in a room soaked with gasoline. "Hey, what's this hospital bill?" I said, showing her my phone. It came through our joint account from a clinic on Breport Lane. She froze for just a second, then turned slowly, forcing a smile. "Oh, that," she said, a little too casually. "It's nothing." I frowned. "You sure?" It was a private women's clinic. "Are you okay?" Her smile vanished like a mask dropping to the floor. "Logan, why are you monitoring every dollar I spend? Seriously, do you have nothing better to do than audit my life?" I blinked. "Audit? Marissa, I'm not auditing you." I was worried. "If it's medical, you don't have the right to worry like that. Not when it comes with passive-aggressive interrogations." "I asked if you were okay," I said, my voice tensing. "I thought maybe you were sick or scared. I didn't accuse you of anything." "You didn't have to," she snapped. "Your tone says it all. You always come in with that calm, serene attitude like you're above it all, but it's still control. You're still trying to catch me doing something, aren't you?" That stopped me. "What?" I said. "Catch you doing what?" She turned sharply, throwing her phone on the counter as if she couldn't stand to hold it. "God, Logan, you never say what you're really thinking. You just poke and prod until I'm the one who explodes, and then you get to play the victim." I clenched my jaw. "You're not listening to me. I'm not angry. I'm confused. I found a medical charge and asked a basic question. Why are you acting like I accused you of cheating?" Her expression faltered for just an instant. And then, coldness. "Maybe because you don't trust me," she said, crossing her arms. "Maybe because you're always watching me." "I do trust you," I said. "But right now, I don't recognize you. The way you're talking to me is like I'm the enemy." "You are," she muttered. I took a step back. "What did you just say?" She didn't answer, just picked up her mug and headed for the door as if she was finished. "No," I said firmly, stepping in her way. "You're not walking away from this. Tell me what's really going on." She stared at me, her eyes sharp and her lips pressed tight, and for the first time in 5 years of marriage, I saw it. Not frustration, not stress, resentment. "Let it go," she said. "If you love me, you'll let it go." I shook my head. "That's not how love works, Marissa. You don't drop a bomb in our finances and then demand silence." She scoffed. "Oh, so now it's about money." "No," I said, raising my voice. "It's about us. You're hiding something, and the way you just exploded over a simple question proves it." The silence stretched between us. She walked around me, her hand trembling slightly as she grabbed her keys. "Don't wait up for me," she said. And then she was gone. I wasn't surprised by the bill. I was surprised by her voice, that tone, as if she hated me. I manage a bar in downtown Columbus. It's not glamorous, but I love it. Long nights, regulars, stories. I get home just before dawn most days. Marissa works mornings at a dental clinic, and we've always made the shifts work, passing each other like dancers in a time-choreographed routine. I thought we were good, not flashy good, but good. Now, I wonder if I've been sleepwalking through a slow collapse, because this, what just happened, wasn't nothing. It was the beginning of something unraveling. That night, I came home later than usual. I had covered an extra shift for a coworker who needed the night off. Anything to keep myself distracted. The apartment was dark, except for the soft glow of the hallway nightlight. I kicked off my work boots and walked quietly through the living room. Marissa's purse was still on the entry table. Her coat was neatly draped over the banister, as if she'd been home for hours, as if everything was normal, except nothing was normal anymore. The house felt quiet in that heavy, unnatural way, like the kind of silence that's waiting for someone to break it. I found her upstairs, already in bed, buried under the covers as if she wanted to disappear into them. She didn't flinch when I entered the room, just kept scrolling on her phone, the blue light casting a faint glow on her face. I changed in silence. Normally, she would ask how the night went or joke about the bar stories I always had. But tonight, nothing, just that cold blue glow and her fingers tapping the screen as if she were somewhere else entirely. I slid under the covers beside her. Carefully, quietly. My hand brushed hers lightly at first. Then I traced my fingers along her arm. Slow, familiar. She didn't move. After a moment, I leaned in, resting my hand on her waist. Hey, I murmured, my voice low. Can we just forget about today? Just for tonight. Still nothing. Then a sharp, annoyed breath, and she rolled over, pulling the blanket higher over her shoulder. Logan, I have a headache. That was it. 5 words. 5 icy, unyielding words. I froze. Not because she said no. No man expects a yes every time. But because of how she said it, with no warmth, no sigh of exhaustion, no apology, just that distant, cutting voice, as if I were a stranger who had gotten too close while she slept. It wasn't rejection, it was disconnection. And that was what left me feeling empty inside. I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling. The fan turned slowly overhead, shadows flickering around the room. She was inches away from me, but I had never felt farther from her. Can you imagine it? Being in the same bed you've shared for years and suddenly feeling like you're trespassing. It wasn't just that she didn't desire me, it was that she didn't see me. I lay still, listening to her breathing even out as she fell asleep or pretended to. I wasn't sure which. I wanted to believe she was tired, stressed, that this would pass, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't. Something had broken this morning, and tonight I watched the fracture widen. This wasn't about a bill anymore. It was something bigger, something unspoken. And now it lived in our bed with us. I tried to close my eyes, to silence the thoughts, but they kept echoing. Her tone, her distance, her anger. I had never been perfect, but I loved her. I tried. God knows I tried. And tonight, for the first time, I wondered if love was enough. Because if she could turn away from me so easily, what other things had she turned to? I didn't sleep that night, not really. I just lay there with my heart pounding, my mind racing, waiting for the sun to come up and answer a question I was too afraid to ask out loud. The morning light filtered slowly through the kitchen blinds, golden and warm, in total disagreement with the chill that had settled between us. I was up early. I couldn't sleep. I had tossed and turned all night, my thoughts on an endless loop like a skipping record. Now I stood barefoot by the stove, frying 2 eggs out of habit. Our morning ritual, or it used to be. I didn't expect conversation. Honestly, I wasn't even sure I wanted it, but something inside me refused to let the silence go on for another minute. I put the eggs on a plate, a couple of buttered toasts, and sat alone at the table. No music, no news, just the clink of my fork and knife echoing too loudly against the ceramic. Marissa finally appeared, already dressed for work, her hair pulled back and her makeup flawless. Her heels clicked on the floor with the same precision she used to avoid eye contact. She opened the fridge, took out orange juice, and poured a glass, still without a glance in my direction. She moved around the kitchen as if I wasn't there. Then the clink happened. My knife hit the edge of my plate a little too hard, too sharp. I wasn't trying to be annoying, but it was enough. She turned. Do you have to eat like that? I blinked. Like what? Like you're building something. All that scraping and banging. It's 7 a.m., Logan. I stared at her, toast halfway to my mouth. It's breakfast. She crossed her arms, leaning against the counter. It's inconsiderate. You know I'm sensitive to sound. I put my fork down slowly, deliberately. You mean since last night? She rolled her eyes. I'm not going through this with you again. No, I said, standing up, calm even. I don't think you've gone through anything with me in a long time. Her expression faltered. Just for a second. What is that supposed to mean? You're angry, I said. But not about the toast, not about the fork. You're lashing out at me like I've done something. But you won't say what it is. She shook her head, laughing bitterly. You're reading too much into everything. I stepped closer, my voice still quiet. I'm not the one hiding things. That hit her. I saw it. Her lips parted like she had something to say, but nothing came out. I pressed on. If you don't want to talk, fine. If you're tired or stressed, okay, but don't treat me like I'm some stranger who broke into your life and made you miserable. Logan, don't. I cut her off. You're angry at the wrong man. And if you won't tell me what's going on, then I'm going to stop waiting for answers. Silence. A long, long silence. For the first time, she looked trapped, not furious, not defensive, just paused. Then she picked up her purse from the chair, her fingers trembling slightly, and headed for the stairs. I didn't follow her, just watched her go, her heels clicking on each step, fading one by one. The kitchen, which was once our safe space, now felt like the waiting room for a diagnosis neither of us wanted to hear. And in that silence, something shifted. I had always tried to protect our peace, to defer to her moods, to make excuses for her coldness. But today I had drawn a line, and she didn't cross it. The late-night crowd had finally thinned out. The jukebox was powering down, humming the last few notes of a tired Springsteen song. I wiped down the bar slowly, dragging a rag across the gleaming wood more out of habit than necessity. My hands were moving, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. The kind of day I'd had. You don't just shake it off with a good playlist and a well-poured IPA. The door chimed one last time before I could flip the sign. Marcus came in, like he did most Thursdays. Old friend, same high school, same battered sense of humor. He'd stayed in town like me. Married, 2 kids, ran a construction company. A solid guy. He slid onto the stool closest to the register, tapped twice, and gave me a tired smile. Rough night. I poured him a draft beer and shrugged in a way that said, "You don't know the half of it." He took a sip and watched me quietly. "You look like hell." "I feel like I'm sleepwalking through something," I said, leaning on the bar. "Like I'm watching my marriage fall apart from the outside." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That bad?" I nodded. "Something's changed with Marissa. It's like she's not even in the room, even when she's standing right there." He stirred the foam in his glass. "You think she's cheating?" The word hit me harder than I expected. "I don't know, but something is wrong. She's jumpy, hostile, hiding things." I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and showed him the charge. "I saw this a few days ago. Women's clinic." I asked her about it, and she lost her temper. Called me controlling. Marcus looked at the screen, then slowly looked up. Clinic as in private GYN, not her usual spot. He shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his stubble. "That's not good." "I didn't even accuse her of anything," I muttered. I asked if she was okay, and she bit my head off. Then she clammed up, cold, shut me out. Marcus hesitated, then let out a low, tense, awkward laugh. "What?" He shook his head. "It's just, my wife got like that when she was pregnant. The mood swings, the secrecy, that weird, paranoid stuff." I froze. "When she was what?" Marcus seemed to regret saying it immediately. "I didn't mean, I'm not saying Marissa is. Look, it was just a thought." But it was too late. That word, pregnant, hit me like a drop of ink in clear water. It stained everything. I pushed back slowly, my hands gripping the edge of the bar. "You think she's pregnant?" Marcus held up both hands. "I didn't say that. I'm just saying if she is, maybe she's scared to tell you." I stared at him. "We've been trying for over 2 years, and she stopped bringing it up a while ago." I figured she'd given up. He didn't speak, just sipped his beer, letting me unravel the situation. "But if she is," I said quietly, "she hasn't told me. And that means something." Marcus nodded, his voice low. "It means you need to find out the truth." I nodded too, but there was no strength behind it. Just resignation. I closed out the register and killed the overhead lights one by one, letting the room dim to shadows. Outside, the October wind was blowing leaves across the sidewalk. I stood at the door, one hand on the frame. "Thanks for the beer," Marcus said, patting my shoulder on his way out. I didn't answer because my mind wasn't in the bar now. It was at a quiet clinic across town, on a woman I no longer recognized, and on a possibility I wasn't ready to name. The next morning, I was sitting in my car across from the address on the statement, a low brick building nestled between a chiropractor's office and a yoga studio. There was nothing suspicious about it, nothing dramatic, just a soft blue sign, Report Woman's Health. It looked ordinary, safe, even. I stared at that sign for a full 5 minutes before I got out of the car. I didn't have a plan, just a growing, gnawing need for truth. Truth it seemed I could no longer ask Marissa for. The lobby smelled like lavender and lemon wipes. Too clean, too quiet. A potted plant stood in the corner by the window, and a young woman behind the counter looked up and smiled politely. "Hi, can I help you?" I nodded, walking slowly to the counter. "Yeah, I'm trying to confirm a visit. My wife, Marissa Holt, might have been here last week." Her expression softened, but not in a comforting way. In a way that said, "Here we go again." "I'm so sorry, sir," she said kindly, "but we can't release any patient information without written consent, not even to family." I smiled, trying to look casual. "I totally get that. I'm not asking for anything sensitive, just trying to confirm if she came in. That's it." She shook her head. "Even that is considered protected information. I wish I could help." I stood there for another moment, hoping she would read something in my face. My confusion, my desperation, my exhaustion, and make a small exception. But she didn't. Okay, I said, backing away slowly. I understand. Have a good day, she offered with the same smile. Polite, firm, unshakable. Outside, the cold hit me in the face. A bitter wind swept through the parking lot, pulling at my coat as if it wanted me to leave. I leaned against the hood of my car, scanning the glass doors of the clinic, wondering if she had walked out of them alone, or if she'd been dropped off, or met someone inside. There are certain thoughts you can't unthink once they arrive, like the fact that if she was pregnant, there was no chance the child was mine. We tried for 2 years, every test, every calendar. I went to every appointment, every specialist, and somewhere in the middle of hope and disappointment, she stopped meeting my eyes when we talked about it. I pushed myself off the hood, got back in the car, and sat with my hands gripping the steering wheel for longer than necessary. Part of me wanted to call her, to ask her straight out, to confront her, but what would I even say? Hey, honey, I investigated your clinic charge and paid a visit to a place you never told me about. Can you fill in the blanks? No, that wasn't going to be it. So I tried another avenue. A buddy of mine, Derek, worked IT for one of the hospital networks in the area. We played poker twice a month for almost 4 years. He owed me a favor or two. I sent him a message. Just a simple, hey, you think you could help me track a patient visit at Bridgeport Women's Health? Name is Marissa Holt. Just want to know the date of the appointment. Nothing else. 3 dots blinked on the screen, then disappeared. Then the reply came. Logan, man, I can't. That place is private. Not even part of our system. Totally separate. Sorry. Dead end. Of course. I stared at the screen for a while. Then I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. The truth was behind too many locked doors, and the woman who held the key was refusing to speak. I sat there with the engine running, watching people come and go, women in coats and scarves, holding small folders or clutching their stomachs, all walking with a sense of purpose. And I felt outside of it all, not just outside the clinic, outside my marriage, outside the answers, outside the life I thought I understood. I had always believed that truth had a way of surfacing, that time and patience and kindness would draw it out. But today I learned that truth can hide behind small smiles and laminated reception signs. And no matter how gently you knock, some doors just won't open, not until they are forced. When I pulled into the driveway that night, the porch light was already on. That never used to happen. We were the kind of couple that left the lights off, letting the darkness settle until one of us got home. But tonight the house was lit up as if someone were expecting company. The second I opened the door, it smelled like roasted garlic and fresh rosemary. Music drifted from the living room, already soft, the kind Marissa only put on during dinner parties or apology nights. And there she was, standing in the kitchen in one of those aprons she never wore, a navy blue one with little gold buttons tied neatly at her waist, her hair softly curled, makeup on, her eyes bright. She looked up and smiled. Hey, honey, she said, as if nothing had ever happened. I froze in the doorway, still in my coat. Hey, I replied cautiously. I made dinner, she said cheerfully, turning back to the stove. Pasta with that sauce you like and warm bread. I figured you'd be hungry after your shift. I hung up my coat, walking in slowly. The table was set, napkins folded, candles lit. It was too much, too fast. I took a seat, watching her move around the kitchen with an easy grace, humming under her breath. The same woman who just a few days ago had turned away from me like I was a stranger. The same woman who exploded over a piece of toast. Now she was serving spaghetti like we were starring in a Hallmark commercial. Are you okay? I asked, not hiding the suspicion in my tone. She looked up, surprised. Yes, why wouldn't I be? I didn't answer. We ate in silence for a while. She filled it with small talk, something about a patient who brought in cupcakes, a coworker who quit without notice. Nothing deep, all surface, but I was listening to what wasn't being said. No mention of the bill, the fights, the distance, nothing about last night, nothing about her sudden change in demeanor. After dinner, she poured 2 glasses of wine and led me upstairs as if it were a normal Thursday, as if we hadn't been Cold War enemies for a week. We undressed in the familiar silence of routine. She got into bed first, moving closer, her fingers brushing my shoulder. Come here, she whispered. I didn't move. She kissed my neck lightly, slow and deliberate. Then her hand slid to my chest. I caught her wrist gently and pulled away. I'm tired, I said, my voice soft. Long shift. She went still. Her hand paused mid-motion before she pulled it back. Oh, she said. Too light, too casual. Sure, sorry. I just missed you. I rolled onto my side, facing the wall. She snuggled up behind me after a moment, resting her hand on my back. I didn't push it away, but I didn't reach for it either, because I wasn't going to fall for the trap. She wasn't reaching for me. She was reaching for control, for closeness she hadn't earned back. This wasn't connection, it was calibration, a test. She wanted to know how much of me she still owned, and tonight I gave her nothing. Long after her breathing slowed, I stared into the darkness, eyes open, heart beating steadily. This wasn't forgiveness. This wasn't healing. This was strategy, and now I knew she wasn't going to tell me the truth. Not until she had no other choice, but I had already made up my mind. From this moment on, I wouldn't chase her, I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't break. Let her lie in peace. I would find the truth in the silence. I didn't want to involve anyone else. For days, I told myself this was between Marissa and me. Our marriage, our secrets, our mess. But when someone hides that deep, you have to look where the light can still get in. So on Saturday afternoon, I drove across town to the small brick duplex where her sister lived. Elena Hold, Marissa's younger sister by 3 years, a kindergarten teacher, bright smile, soft eyes. She always had a way of diffusing tension, even in their worst family fights. She opened the door with a hesitant smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Logan, hi, I said with my hands in my coat pockets. Can I come in? She hesitated just long enough to answer without words. Then she stepped aside. The living room smelled like cinnamon and fabric softener. A kid's movie was paused on the TV, and a basket of folded laundry sat on the couch. Want some coffee? No, I said kindly. I just need to talk. She nodded and sat on the edge of the armrest, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, as if she were bracing for something she already knew was coming. Elena, I began carefully. I think you know something, and I think it's been eating at you. She didn't answer, just looked down at her clasped hands, the silence thickening. I'm not here to corner you, I said. I'm not angry, but I need the truth because I'm not getting it anywhere else. Her lip trembled slightly, and then she let out a long, shaky breath. I told her not to drag it out, she whispered. I told her the longer she lied, the worse it would be. I felt my stomach drop. Elena, I said slowly. Marissa's pregnant. She nodded once, then looked up, her eyes glassy. Yes. My throat closed up. I leaned back in the chair as if I'd been hit. She didn't tell me, I said quietly. Not a word. She's scared, Logan. She's not scared, I said, clenching my jaw. She's strategic. She's been picking fights, avoiding me, lying. Why would she do that? Unless. Elena blinked slowly. I didn't finish the sentence. She doesn't know who the father is, Elena whispered, as if the words themselves were fragile. Silence. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't want it to come out like that. She told me a few weeks ago. Said it was an accident, a mistake, some guy from work. It wasn't serious. I stared at the floor, my heart pounding in my ears. Did she say when? No, just that it happened once. She thought it would pass. Then she missed her period. My voice was steady, but distant, and she just decided to pretend everything was normal. She didn't know what to do. She said she wanted to have the baby, but she didn't want to lose you either. She thought she could just hold on. Hold on, I repeated. Let me think it was mine. I told her it was wrong. Elena said quickly. I told her she couldn't lie about something like that. She was going to let me raise someone else's child. I muttered, more to myself than to her. Without even asking, I stood up slowly. Elena, I said quietly. Thank you. She looked at me, her eyes wet. Are you going to leave her? I didn't answer with words. I just nodded once, slow, solemn, and turned for the door. Please don't tell her I told you, she said suddenly. She'll never speak to me again. I paused. I won't, I said over my shoulder. You didn't betray her. She betrayed me. Outside, the wind whipped my face, sharp and bitter. I walked to my car with a stillness I hadn't felt in days. There was no need for shouting anymore. No more arguments. No more begging for answers. I knew now, and tomorrow, I would take the final step. The next morning I woke before dawn. The house was silent. The kind of quiet that used to feel peaceful, now just felt empty. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee growing cold in front of me, staring at nothing. Elena's words replayed like an echo I couldn't turn off. She doesn't know who the father is. I should have felt fury, betrayal, something sharp enough to break through the numbness. But instead, I just felt stillness. It wasn't a surprise. Somewhere deep down, I think I already knew. When you live with someone long enough, you start to recognize the sound of lies. Not by what they say, but by what they suddenly stop saying. By 9 a.m., I was parked outside another clinic, one I'd been to years ago when we were trying for a baby. The sign hadn't changed, Central Ohio Reproductive Health. I still remembered the doctor's name. Inside, the nurse smiled politely as I explained I needed a routine fertility checkup. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. It took less than an hour. Paperwork, a sample, the promise that the doctor would call during the day. When I left, the air felt cold enough to sting. I walked to my truck, sat behind the wheel, and stared through the windshield until my breath fogged the glass. In the afternoon, the phone rang. Mr. Holt. The voice was clinical, firm. We've received your results. Okay. I must inform you. Your sample shows a non-viable sperm count, essentially 0. I'm sorry, but conception through natural means is not possible. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. How long has it been like that? Likely permanent, she said kindly, possibly congenital. It's not new. Okay, I said quietly. Thank you. When I hung up, I sat in the truck for a long time, staring at the steering wheel. No surprise, no tears, just a strange, clear silence. All the confusion of the past week, every lie, every fight, every cold look, snapped into perfect alignment in that single moment. It wasn't paranoia, it wasn't insecurity, it was the truth hiding in plain sight, and now I finally had proof. Not the kind you argue with, not the kind you can twist or deny, the kind written in biology. I didn't drive home right away. Instead, I called my lawyer, Daniel, an old friend who had handled the bar's paperwork years ago. Dan, it's Logan. I need to draw up divorce papers, fast and ironclad. He didn't ask why, just said, got it. When I hung up, I looked across the parking lot at the people passing by. Families, couples, strangers, all living their ordinary lives. And for the first time in days, I felt steady, not angry, not broken, just done. Tomorrow she would find out, and when she did, she would realize that this time, she wasn't the one writing the ending. She made dessert. That's how I knew. We weren't dessert people. Not on a weeknight, not after pasta. But there she was, standing in the kitchen with a plate of chocolate lava cake, 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream on the side, and that smile, that too sweet, tight-lipped smile she hadn't worn in months. I played along, took the plate, thanked her, sat across from her at the table as if everything were normal, as if the last 2 weeks hadn't been a slow-motion implosion. She waited until I'd had a few bites before she set her fork down carefully, as if it mattered how the silver touched the ceramic. Logan, she said softly, we need to talk. I put my fork down, matching her tone. Okay. She looked nervous, her eyes darting from mine to her hands and back. I've been weird lately. I know you've noticed, and I've been scared to tell you why because I didn't know how you'd take it, but you deserve the truth. I nodded, not speaking, not rushing her. She let out a slow breath, almost like she was bracing for impact, and finally said it. I'm pregnant. She paused, as if it were a bomb she'd just dropped, waiting to see where the smoke would settle. I tilted my head slightly. Our baby. She smiled, small and shaky. Yes. A moment of silence passed. Then I smiled too. That's interesting, I said, setting my napkin on the table. Marissa's smile faltered. What do you mean? I stood up, walked to the sideboard, and picked up a folded piece of paper I'd left there on purpose. I took my time, no anger, no drama, just surgical precision. I placed the paper in front of her. My doctor confirmed something for me today. Turns out I'm sterile, completely infertile. 0 count. Apparently, it's been that way my whole life. Her face drained of all color. I leaned against the counter, my arms crossed. So unless you believe in the Immaculate Conception, this is someone else's baby. Marissa didn't move, didn't breathe, then her lips parted. Logan, I've already filed the papers, I said calmly. The divorce papers are ready. My lawyer will be in touch this week. She blinked rapidly, as if trying to wake from a nightmare. Wait, what? No, this wasn't planned. I didn't want. I held up a hand. It did. I'm not angry, I said. I was, but now I'm just done. Tears welled up instantly. She reached across the table as if that could undo something. It was a mistake, she whispered. One. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely. We weren't connecting and Logan, we can still fix this. We can raise the baby together. Please, don't do this. I shook my head once. That offer expired the day you lied. She slumped into her chair, crying now, sobbing into her hands as if the truth had just become real to her. I didn't move, didn't comfort her. I had done that before. For months, I tried to meet her halfway, but this wasn't halfway. This was a cliff, and she had already jumped, and now she wanted me to follow. I was going to tell you, she gasped between sobs. I didn't know how. You were never going to tell me, I said. You were hoping I'd believe the lie, that I'd love the baby enough to forget biology. You were hoping you could erase what happened by making me the father. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did. I cut her off, my voice still calm. And the worst part wasn't the cheating, it was the story you built after. The trap, the performance, the way you looked me in the eye and handed me a lie like it was a gift. She cried harder. I walked to the living room. I picked up the folder from the side table. Inside, copies of the documents, divorce papers, my medical reports, a clean, final truth. I placed them gently in front of her. I'll be staying at the studio apartment above the bar until things are finalized, I said. Please don't contact me unless it's through legal channels. She didn't answer. She couldn't. She was a mess of guilt and mascara at the kitchen table. I looked at her one last time. The woman I thought I would build a life with. The woman who once whispered dreams in my ear on porch swings and on Christmas mornings. Now she just seemed small. I wanted to be a father, I said, my voice almost breaking, but not like this. Then I walked out, closing the door behind me. No slamming, no shouting, just a quiet end to a carefully constructed illusion. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. No towering judge's bench or dramatic lighting. Just wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, and the low murmur of lawyers turning pages. Still, the weight of it all felt overwhelming, as if the air knew what was about to happen. Marissa sat across from me, her face pale and unreadable. She wore a navy blue blazer, her hair tucked behind her ears. She looked like she was there for a job interview, but her hands were trembling in her lap. My lawyer, Daniel, sat beside me, calm as always. He'd already gone over the papers a dozen times, but he leaned in anyway and whispered, "You sure you're okay?" I nodded once, very sure. The hearing was brief, just division of assets, final disclosures, and acknowledgement of the medical reports. All filed, all documented, no theatrics, no objections. Daniel submitted the sealed fertility assessment. The judge glanced at it, her eyes scanning line by line until she finally looked up. "Mr. Holt," she said, "this documentation clearly supports your claim of permanent infertility. Are you certain you wish to proceed without requesting a paternity test?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes, Your Honor. It's not necessary." Across the room, Marissa's lawyer leaned in, whispering something urgent to her. She shook her head, then stood up slowly. "I'd like to make a statement," she said quietly. The judge allowed it. Marissa cleared her throat, her voice shaky. I wasn't honest. I had a brief relationship outside of my marriage. I got pregnant and I panicked. I didn't know who the father was, and I convinced myself that maybe it could still be Logan's. But I knew the truth. I just couldn't face it. Her voice broke. "It was a man I worked with. He doesn't know about the pregnancy. He moved out of state a month ago. I can't find him." The room fell silent. The kind of silence that follows a gunshot. Not because of the noise, but because of the impact. The judge nodded solemnly and proceeded. The ruling was quick. All marital assets protected. Divorce granted. No legal responsibility for the unborn child fell to me. A clean break. Afterward, I walked outside alone. The air was cool and crisp, the trees shedding the last of their autumn leaves. I stood by the courthouse steps, watching them flutter to the ground like pieces of a story finally finished. She followed me out. "Logan," she called. I turned. Just waiting. Her eyes filled with tears again. "I should have known. I really thought I could fix this. I thought maybe if I told you it was yours, you'd stay." I nodded slowly. "You weren't wrong. I might have." She swallowed. "But you didn't just cheat on me, Marissa," I said. "You tried to make me the villain in your cover-up, and if I hadn't asked questions, I'd be raising a child that isn't mine, believing a lie for the rest of my life. She had no words. I looked at her one last time. The woman who once meant everything, now standing in a puddle of her own making. I wanted to believe in us, I said. But you turned that trust into a weapon. Then I walked down the steps, each one lighter than the last. The next morning, my sister showed up unannounced. Julia had a key, but she knocked anyway. Her way of asking permission before she barged into my life. She stood at the door with a paper bag of pastries, and that older sister looked that meant I was about to get some perspective. I heard, she said, walking in. She set the bag down, made coffee just like she used to in Dad's kitchen when we were kids. I let her. She needed the routine. And maybe I did too. You really did it? She finally asked, sipping from a chipped mug. I nodded. Papers signed. Judge stamped it yesterday. She blew out a breath through her nose. Logan, I get it. I really do. But she's still carrying a life inside her. That baby didn't lie to you. I looked at her for a long moment. That baby isn't mine. I know, but... She knew it wasn't mine, I said calmly. And she looked me in the eye and told me it was. Not because she believed it, but because she thought I would believe her. Julia was quiet. She wanted a clean slate, I said. So she painted over me. For a while, the only sound was the low hum of the coffee maker and the occasional car driving by outside. You were always the one who saw the good in people, Julia said quietly. I still do, I replied. But I also see what they choose when they think you won't find out. She nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her expression. Then she stood up, came over, and hugged me. Not with pity, but with pride. I hated her for what she did to you, she whispered. I don't, I said softly. I'm just not carrying it with me anymore. When she left, I stood at the window, watching the world go on. Kids riding bikes on the sidewalk, neighbors raking leaves into golden piles, dogs barking at squirrels as if nothing had changed. But something had. I had. And I finally understood something I never had before. Sometimes dignity doesn't come from holding on. It comes from knowing when to walk away quietly, completely, and without looking back.